Hello Army, welcome back to my channel. Okay, before we even get into today's topic, I need you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share with you today is one of those moments where everything you've always believed about Jungkook, every single thing you've defended, every argument you've had with non-fans, every time someone told you that you were being biased, all of it just got validated. Not by a fan account. Not by a stan page. Not by someone who already loves BTS. But by a professional music producer who worked with BTS firsthand and then went to one of the most respected music publications in the entire world, Billboard, and said exactly what we've been saying all along. So if you're ready, let's get into it. And trust me, you're going to want to watch this one until the very end. Let's start with a little bit of context, because I think it's really important to understand who Tyler Spry is before we dive into what he actually said. Tyler Spry is not just some random person who met BTS once at an event and decided to share his opinions on the internet. Tyler Spry is a legitimate, working music producer who collaborated with BTS on the project called Ararang. This is someone who has sat in the same studio as Jungkook, who has listened to him sing in real time, without any production tricks, without any studio magic applied yet, just raw, unfiltered Jungkook. And when you keep that in mind, what he shared in his Billboard interview becomes so much more powerful, because his words come from actual, first-hand professional experience. Now, in the music industry, it's actually quite rare for producers to come out and publicly praise individual artists in such a specific and detailed way. Most of the time, producers are diplomatic. They say things like everyone was great to work with, the whole team was amazing, it was a wonderful experience. Very polished, very professional, very safe. But Tyler Spry did something different. He went out of his way to specifically talk about Jungkook, and the things he said were not vague or generic. They were precise. They were detailed. And they were exactly the kind of validation that every single ARMY has been waiting to hear from someone in the professional music world. So what did Tyler Spry actually say? He told Billboard that Jungkook is an amazing songwriter. Now, let's just pause on that for a second, because I think sometimes we as fans focus so much on Jungkook as a vocalist that we sometimes forget how deeply involved he is in the actual creation of his music. Jungkook doesn't just show up to the studio and sing what someone else wrote. He is actively, creatively involved in the songwriting process. He has writing credits. He contributes ideas. He pushes back when something doesn't feel right. And having a professional producer confirm this to a publication like Billboard is a huge deal, because it means the people who are actually in the room with him see and recognize that creative contribution. But here's where things get really interesting, and honestly where the ARMY in all of us starts to feel things that are hard to put into words. Tyler Spry didn't just stop at calling Jungkook a great songwriter. He went further. He said that Jungkook is an incredible singer, and then he added something that stopped me completely when I first read it. He said that Jungkook can sing with no autotune and hit all the notes. No autotune. Hit all the notes. Let that sink in for a moment. Because in today's music industry, autotune is not something to be ashamed of. Literally almost every major artist uses it in some form. It's a production tool, it's a stylistic choice, it's part of the modern sound. There's nothing wrong with it. But the fact that Tyler Spry specifically mentioned that Jungkook doesn't need it, that he can deliver a perfect vocal performance without any pitch correction, that is not a small thing to say. That is a professional producer essentially telling the entire world that Jungkook's voice is elite, and not just elite in the K-pop world, but elite by any standard, in any genre, in any industry. And I think this is the part that hits so hard for ARMY, because we have been saying this for years. Years. Every time someone dismissed Jungkook's voice as overproduced, every time someone said K-pop singers are all just auto-tuned and don't have real talent, every time someone questioned whether any of the BTS members actually had genuine vocal ability, ARMY was right there saying no, you're wrong, listen again. And now we have a professional producer who worked with him, who heard him in the studio, who knows what real vocal talent looks and sounds like, standing up in front of one of the biggest music publications in the world and saying exactly what we've been saying. It's not just satisfying. It's validating in the deepest possible way. Now let's talk about something else that Tyler Spry shared, because his Billboard interview wasn't just about Jungkook's technical abilities. He also talked about the experience of working with BTS as a whole, and some of what he described gives us a really beautiful window into who Jungkook is as a person, not just as an artist. Spry talked about how when they were working together, the best music they created happened when they built a space where everyone felt free to try anything. And the examples he gave of that freedom were so specific and so telling. He mentioned that Suga would jump on the mic and freestyle rap in front of writers and producers he'd only known for a few days, which if you know Suga at all, you know that level of comfort and openness is not something that comes easily to him. It speaks to the kind of environment that was created in that studio. And then he mentioned Jungkook specifically again. He said that Jungkook could tell them when a lyric concept wasn't good and that he didn't like it, but he would do it in a kind way, in a friendly way. And he even laughed about it when he was recounting the story, which tells you so much. Think about what that actually means. Jungkook, who is the youngest member of BTS, the Magne, who is known for being respectful and warm and sometimes even a little shy in professional settings, was comfortable enough and confident enough in his own artistic judgment to tell professional songwriters and producers that their lyric concepts weren't working for him. And he did it with kindness and grace. That is not the behavior of someone who just shows up and does what he's told. That is an artist with a real, developed sense of his own creative vision, someone who knows what he wants and is not afraid to advocate for it, even in a room full of experienced professionals. This is something that I think gets overlooked a lot when people talk about Jungkook. Yes, everyone talks about his voice. Everyone talks about his dancing, his visuals, the whole Golden Magne thing. But his role as a creative collaborator, as someone who actively shapes the music he's part of, that's a side of him that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. And having Spry highlight that specific quality in a Billboard interview is so important, because it adds a dimension to how the general public understands who Jungkook actually is as an artist. Let's also take a moment to think about what it means for something like this to appear in Billboard specifically. Because there are a lot of music publications out there, and not all of them carry the same weight. Billboard has been the gold standard of the music industry for decades. When Billboard talks about an artist, the entire industry pays attention. Record labels pay attention. Radio stations pay attention. Other producers and musicians pay attention. So when a producer goes to Billboard and says Jungkook is an incredible singer who can perform with no auto-tune, that statement reaches an audience that goes far beyond the ARMY fanbase. It reaches people in the industry who might not have thought about Jungkook in those terms before, people who might have had assumptions or preconceptions about K-pop artists in general. And now those people are reading Spry's words in Billboard and having to reconsider those assumptions. Because that's something that BTS and Jungkook in particular have always faced, right? The assumption that because they make K-pop, because they come from a non-Western music tradition, somehow their talent must be a product of the system rather than something genuinely extraordinary. And that assumption has always been so frustrating, because anyone who has actually listened to Jungkook sing, really listened, knows that what he does is not something you can manufacture. You either have that kind of voice or you don't. You either have that kind of natural pitch and tone and control or you don't. And Jungkook has it. Spry knows it because he heard it. And now he's said it publicly, in the most prominent music publication in the world. I also want to talk about what this means in the context of where Jungkook is right now in his career, because I think timing matters a lot here. Jungkook has been doing his mandatory military service, and while he's been away, the conversation about his talent and his legacy has continued without slowing down at all. If anything, the period while he's been in service has given people time to reflect on everything he's contributed, to look back at his discography, at his live performances, at his collaborations, and really sit with how remarkable his career has been. And into that context comes Spry's interview, this professional validation from someone who worked with him directly, and it just adds another layer to the conversation. It reminds everyone why Jungkook matters, why his voice matters, why his artistry matters, even while he's temporarily away from the spotlight. And for ARMY, this kind of thing hits differently when your favorite is in the military. Because you miss them. You miss their music, you miss their presence, you miss seeing them perform. And when moments like this happen, when someone from the professional world stands up and says something this powerful about them, it feels like the world is keeping track, like people are paying attention even in their absence. It's a reminder that Jungkook's impact doesn't pause just because he's serving his country. Now I want to talk about something that I think is really worth addressing, which is the broader context of how Jungkook's vocal ability has been discussed and debated over the years. Because here's the thing, ARMY has always known that Jungkook is an incredible vocalist. But there's always been this frustrating pattern online where his talent gets questioned or minimized, usually by people who haven't actually taken the time to listen carefully or to understand what they're hearing. And a big part of that comes down to the autotune conversation, because critics of K-pop often point to production and studio polish as a way to dismiss the raw talent of the artists involved. And the thing is, yes, production is a huge part of any recorded music. That's true for literally every artist in every genre. Studio production does enhance and shape how a voice sounds on a recording. But there's a fundamental difference between using production tools to create a sound and being able to deliver an exceptional vocal performance completely raw, without any assistance. Tyler Spry's comment about Jungkook being able to sing with no autotune and hit all the notes is directly addressing that question. He's essentially saying, I heard him with my own ears, in a professional studio setting, and what comes out of Jungkook's mouth is extraordinary regardless of any production choices made afterward. That's the thing about truly elite vocalists. The production doesn't make them good. The production maybe makes them sound a certain way, maybe gives their voice a particular color or texture that fits a specific song, but the foundation of what they can do is already there before any of that happens. And Tyler Spry is confirming that Jungkook's foundation is exceptional. That the raw material, the voice that Jungkook walks into the studio with before any engineer touches a single knob, is already at a level that professional producers in the international music industry find remarkable. Let's also think about the songwriting aspect for a moment, because I feel like this is something that deserves more attention than it usually gets. Tyler Spry called Jungkook an amazing songwriter. That word amazing is not one that music industry professionals throw around carelessly, especially not in a publication like Billboard. Amazing is a word you use when something genuinely exceeds your expectations, when someone surprises you with their ability. And the fact that Tyler Spry used it to describe Jungkook's songwriting tells us something really important: Jungkook impressed him. A professional producer who works with artists all the time, who has a high bar for what constitutes real talent, was impressed by Jungkook's songwriting ability. This aligns with everything we know about how deeply Jungkook has invested in his own artistic development over the years. He has grown so much as a creator. If you look at his early career and then you look at where he is now, the evolution is incredible. He's moved from being primarily known as BTS's incredible main vocalist to being recognized as a fully formed artist who contributes meaningfully to every aspect of his music, from the writing to the arrangement to the performance. And that growth didn't happen by accident. It happened because Jungkook has always cared deeply about being genuinely good, not just popular, not just well received, but actually, technically, artistically excellent. And that commitment to genuine excellence is, I think, part of what made such a strong impression on Tyler Spry. Because when you work with someone who is truly driven to be the best they can be, who brings that kind of energy and seriousness into the creative process, it's noticeable. You feel it in the sessions. You feel it in the way they engage with feedback, the way they push for the song to be better, the way they're not satisfied with something that's just okay when they know it can be great. And based on everything Tyler Spry described, that's exactly the kind of collaborator Jungkook is. Now, I also love what Tyler Spry said about V, because I think it shows that his appreciation for BTS is genuine and comes from a real place of connection and respect. He described V as warm and sweet with an incredible tone, and mentioned that even with the language barrier between them, they were cracking jokes and having fun in the studio. This tells us that the experience of working with BTS members was not just professionally impressive but personally meaningful. These are people who managed to form real connections with someone from a completely different cultural and linguistic background, purely through their warmth and their personality and their shared love of music. And that kind of human connection across barriers is something really special. It also tells us something about the environment that BTS members create wherever they go. Because this isn't the first time we've heard stories like this from producers and collaborators. There's a consistent pattern in how people who work with BTS describe the experience. They talk about how welcoming the members are, how much fun they bring to the process, how seriously they take the work while still keeping the atmosphere light and creative. And that combination, professional excellence combined with genuine warmth and humor, is something that not everyone has. It's something that you can't fake, and it's something that Spry clearly experienced firsthand. What I find so beautiful about this whole story is the way it connects so many different things we love about Jungkook into one coherent picture. He's vocally exceptional, confirmed by a professional who heard him firsthand. He's a genuine creative contributor, not just a performer but an artist who shapes the music he's part of. He has the confidence and the integrity to advocate for his own artistic vision, even in professional settings. And he does all of this with a warmth and a kindness that makes the people around him feel good. That is not a manufactured persona. That is a real person, a real artist, someone whose talent and character are both genuinely remarkable. And for ARMY, hearing all of this confirmed by someone like Spry in a publication like Billboard is not just exciting. It's deeply meaningful. Because being in ARMY is not just about loving the music, although the music is incredible. It's about believing in these people, believing in their talent, believing in their character, defending them when others don't understand, explaining to people over and over again why they matter. And when moments like this happen, when the wider world catches up to what you've always known, it's a feeling that's really hard to describe. It's not just I told you so, although yes, we absolutely told them. It's more like relief, and gratitude, and this overwhelming sense of rightness, like the truth finally being seen by people who needed to see it. I also think this moment is important in a larger conversation about how K-pop and Korean artists are perceived internationally, because there's still a lot of work to be done there. Despite all the incredible success that BTS and other Korean artists have had on the global stage, there are still people who hold on to these assumptions and prejudices about what K-pop is and what K-pop artists can and can't do. And every time someone like Spry speaks up, every time a professional from the Western music industry publicly acknowledges the genuine, extraordinary talent of artists like Jungkook, it chips away at those assumptions a little more. It makes it a little bit harder for people to dismiss what they don't want to understand. And that matters, not just for BTS, not just for ARMY, but for Korean music and Korean artists as a whole. Because when the world sees that Jungkook is being praised by professional producers and Billboard for his vocal ability and his songwriting, it opens a door for other Korean artists too. It shifts the conversation. It contributes to a world where Korean artists are evaluated on their actual merits, on what they can actually do, rather than being filtered through assumptions about their genre or their cultural background. So, as we wrap up today, let's take a moment to just sit with everything Spry gave us with his Billboard interview. He gave us confirmation that everything ARMY has always believed about Jungkook is real and true and recognized by people who know what they're talking about. He gave us a picture of Jungkook as not just a vocalist but a complete artist, a songwriter, a creative collaborator, someone with a genuine artistic vision and the integrity to stand behind it. He gave us a glimpse of what it's like to be in the same room as Jungkook, and honestly, it sounds like one of the best experiences a producer could have. And he gave us, as a community, a moment of pure, well-earned validation. Jungkook is in the military right now, doing his duty, being the person he has always been, responsible, dedicated, putting his whole heart into whatever he commits to. And while he's away, the world is still talking about him, still discovering him, still being amazed by him. Because that's what happens when talent is real. It doesn't need you to be present to remind people it exists. It speaks for itself. Spry heard it. Billboard published it. And now the whole world knows what ARMY has always known. Thank you so much for watching today, and if this video made you feel something, if it reminded